the Super Bowl, New England Patriots, and their historic win. No team has been this good for this long. I think I looked at odds, and they gave you less than 0.5% of winning the game. And then the coach said, let's go for 3. He's losing by so much. He said, let's go for 3. And I say, what is he doing? That was a great decision, Coach. I tell him that all the time.
Can I just... Oh, I think I got this, but thank you. Maybe.
I'll let you.
All right, thanks, man. I'll see you in a minute. All right, that was cool.
Interesting day for the Patriots yesterday, and of course at the White House, Donald Trump giving the team a lot of love, but no mention of Tom Brady, plus Gronk being Gronk. We welcome Will Kane to the desk. Good to see you, as always. Max, I'm going to start with you on this one. What was your takeaway from the Pats' White House visit?
Well, let me start by saying this has nothing to do with any kind of partisan politics or ideology of my own. I would say the same thing if there was the mirror image of this White House on the left. I would say the exact same thing if there was a press secretary on the left who's done what this press secretary's done, president on the left who's done what this president has done. The exact same thing. It's not partisan. But my reaction is this is why they shouldn't have gone to the White House. Because Gronk is going to Gronk, and he's great, he's hilarious, and all of that. But when the press corps is cracking up at a press secretary because of an athlete's presence there, so he's lending something to the proceedings, the athlete is. And the press corps is, you know, they're having a rollicking good time. They're really laughing at a press secretary who, in his first press conference, demonstrably lied, shot credibility. I mean, your job is to establish credibility with the national media, and completely shot it since his first press conference, and it's gone downhill since there, by the way. And in a scary way, incidentally, especially where there was a lot of uncertainty about a very unusual administration, how much authoritarian impulse is there. Well, when the press secretary comes out and says, what you know as a fact is not a fact because now we're giving you alternative facts, eventually was the phrase. But that's a scary thing. Like, wait, what's going on here? They think that they can just say anything and we're supposed to take it as true. When that guy is normalized and everyone's having and the press is yucking it up, that's a very bad thing. That's an unhealthy thing to have happened. And while I appreciate the idea that it's a great honor to go to the White House, that you don't even have to honor who is in it necessarily, but the institution itself, I do appreciate that. But in fact, what winds up happening in a case like this is the team is used for purposes that turn out to be political. It's unavoidable. And so when I saw Gronk doing what he did and the press corps yucking it up, you know, and Sean Spicer was kind of the catalyst there, I think it's a bad thing, and that's why I think a boycott in this case would have been a better idea.
Stephen A?
Max, I think you're overreacting, with all due respect, because that was about Gronk, and the press was laughing at him. The press wasn't laughing at Sean Spicer. They were laughing at Rob Gronkowski interrupting a press conference. He is a football player who's on a Super Bowl champion, who is known for comical histrionics and things of that nature. If it were Sean Spicer talking about serious issues that obviously resonate not just for this country but globally, and folks were laughing or whatever the case may be, whether we agree or disagree, I would understand your point a bit better. But I do think it's an overreaction as it pertains to folks in the media laughing about Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski is not setting policy. Rob Gronkowski is not a government official. Rob Gronkowski has nothing to do with running this country. He did something that in a moment made them laugh. They're human beings. They're allowed to sit there and react in that context, particularly if it's at Rob Gronkowski, which is what I saw. If there was something to be disturbed by, as far as I'm concerned, based off of yesterday's festivities, it's the pettiness of our President Donald Trump in his unwillingness, refusal, or dereliction of whatever, duty or whatever you want to call it, to bring up the name Tom Brady when he was mentioning folks. You mention everybody, but you don't mention the reigning Super Bowl MVP, who's a 5-time Super Bowl champion, universally recognized as one of, if not the greatest quarterback in the history of football, who, by the way, had your hat "Make America Great" in his locker stall, which caused some discussion and dialogue and, dare I say, controversy. Just because Tom Brady didn't show up, you didn't mention him. And we all know why. Tom Brady had a family commitment. We know what that family commitment was, even though he didn't elaborate on it. His mother is suffering from cancer. She was in town on a rare occasion that she is in town, and he decided to spend that day with his mom. I was really surprised and disappointed that President Donald Trump did not mention Tom Brady, but threw out a slew of other names to mention, because it speaks to what people believe, anyway, is a level of pettiness that the president can engage in sometimes. That's the only issue I had with yesterday.
Rob Gronkowski represented everything that this day should be. He's the perfect symbol for what a visit to the White House should be. He was apolitical, he was joyous, he was celebrating and having a good time over his football championship, both in the Oval Office and the press briefing. Max, Stephen A. is completely right. You are overreacting, and it has a real cost. Now, please hear me out. First of all, on whether or not you feel like you're being partisan, I truly believe your aim when you come out here on a daily basis and engage me in debate is to be as honest as you can aim the dart. But to suggest you're not being partisan is not being honest with yourself. I try to be honest with myself. We all do. We all have our biases, and we all have some extent of partisanship in us. Here's where your partisanship is failing you. You said if there were the mirror image of this in a Democratic administration, you'd say the same thing.
Absolutely.
But you are only seeing some things in the mirror. The mirror you're looking into is subjective. You cannot deny it. It is. And here's the cost of your overreaction, because you're not the only one.
In what way is it subjective?
You see all the bad. You see none of the good. You see all of the things you hate, none of the things you can accept. You see all of the things in this administration, and you don't see them in past. And I'm going to lay this out for you. Here's the illustration of the cost. And I think, number one, Danny Amendola tweets out a thank you, a shout out for the president bringing him up, and he has to pull down the tweet because he is universally excoriated.
Yeah.
Number two, I agree, Stephen A. The president was extremely political. The craziness yesterday encompassed everyone. You do not neglect to mention the greatest football player, the greatest quarterback of all time, because he didn't show up. Here's the real cost, Max. You talked about alternative facts. Yesterday, the New York Times tweeted out two different pictures. Number one, of how the team looked when it showed up under Obama. Number two, when it showed up under Trump. The Patriots, later that day, tweeted out...
Kidding. You're really bringing that up?
Yeah, and I'm going to finish.
Oh, you're joking about that, right?
Zero joking. Okay. This is the cost.
So in other
you
words,
undercut credibility
because
you've lost.
Wait, one
I haven't
second. Can I
finished.
just hear the New York Times part?
The New York Times tweeted out two pictures. One when the Patriots showed up in 2015 under Obama. One they showed up yesterday. And the insinuation was, look at the difference in the size of the turnout of the team.
Got it.
Number one, they were not comparable. The one from Obama's administration showed staff. The one from Trump showed just the team. The Patriots tweeted this themselves. They corrected the New York Times on their flaws. Max, here's the point.
No, this is the damage that you're doing right now. It's precisely
I didn't put out falsehood. I didn't put out
Well, it's precisely
lies.
the opposite, because there are times when media can behave in a partisan way and not put things in proper context. And when they are called out on it, it is proper and good. I'm not denying that. However, for an administration that talks about fake news when they are the generators of it, they went on a Soviet-style, fed and apparently a disinformation campaign, for you now to point out an instance where a reputable, legitimate media organization erred, rather than the million times that the administration did, is to create a sense of false equivalency and give them precisely the kind of publicity for the ammo that they're seeking.
This idea.
That is the damage.
If I am doing damage by pointing out the truth and pointing out the falsehoods, then so be it.
Where
because let me explain to you
from
something.
The New York Times or the Trump administration, Will?
Both.
No,
But
it's equivalent? There's an equivalence?
Max, I'm not drawing...
That's a question. Is
Max,
it equivalent,
listen.
yes or no?
Max, I'm not drawing a broad brush and suggesting the Trump administration is telling all truths and the New York Times is telling all lies. But in this particular instance, on the news story we're talking about today with the New England Patriots, The lie is not coming from the Trump administration. It's coming from the New York Times. And it's been corrected. It's my job, as it is yours, to tell the truth when it is presented. And by the way, if you ask me on any given occasion when the Trump administration has lied and it's connected to sports,
sure,
because that's my job to talk about sports, I'll point it out. But I will not, under some idea of worrying about false equivalency, perpetuate a lie.
However, however many times we've talked about this subject politically, you have now mentioned something that the New York Times did, that the administration,
because I'm in sports,
that the Patriots pointed out one time, and that represents some large percentage of the times that we've discussed.
It's a sports story, Max.
This period.
It's a sports story.
So if we're talking about the White House press secretary versus the New York Times,
we're not.
Who is more credible based on?
We're not talking about that. Because this is First Take, and this is sports.
No, yes, but we are, and that's the point about normalizing it. That's the point about the athlete showing up. It becomes a political moment.
Talking about
There's no way around it.
I'm talking about a sports moment yesterday. I'm not talking about Sean Spicer on a day-to-day basis. Not my job.
Allow me to interject in this regard, because I really, really want to step back, because I'm actually fascinated by this discussion between you two. I'm dead serious about it. I really don't want to say much, but I will interject by adding this. It was about sports. It was about a Super Bowl champion, Max, showing up to the White House. You literally took Rob Gronkowski's, moment of joking around and literally pointed the finger at the media and beyond. So what I'm saying to you is I do lean towards Will in that regard. When you say that it's political, well, everything is not political, and I don't think that there's anything that Rob Gronkowski did that was political. That's all I want to say about it. And y'all can go ahead.
Normally that would be true.
Okay.
But and I'll direct this to both of you. But Will, to answer your question about looking in the mirror and it's subjective. If it were Mitt Romney's administration or John McCain's administration, some hypothetical administration, I would not be saying this. This is not about tax reform. This is not about where you fall on a variety of issues, the Supreme Court, whatever else. This is about a highly unusual administration, we could put it that way, at least in a way that we would all agree upon. And the idea of lending it credibility in the form of normalizing it. And that includes our traditions and customs, because a lot of what is normal turns out is not legal, but it's institutional and traditional. And so when the Patriots visit the White House and these kind of things go on, it is normalizing it in precisely that way.
I believe you. I believe that you would not do this under other administrations. I believe you believe this is an exception, and you believe this is abnormal.
I believe you think it's an exception, too, by the way.
Yeah, I might, Max,
well,
but that's not my job. And what I'm pointing out today is you lose perspective, and you wind up with what happened yesterday.
We have to go to break. Maybe we can address it later in the show. We have to leave it there. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, listen, I loved it. I loved it. I didn't mind stepping back at all.
Golden State's Game 2 game against the Blazers, and ho-hum, the Warriors win by 29. So do the Warriors really need KD? These guys get into it. And here's why we need to get to break, because joining us next is one of the best running backs in the NFL draft. Dalvin Cook is here. We're going to ask him why he stands above the other top backs available. Don't go anywhere. It's First Take.